I think the reason that Lon fingers me to talk on this subject is it's a subject that I struggled with for a long time, several years ago. And it's not an easy subject to get your head around, but what Lon asked me to talk about is property rights, condemnation, and the concept of willing sellers. When I first came on the coalition, my perspective was if we stop eminent domain, it's a done deal. We got it whipped. Since then, I've come to understand that the story doesn't end there. There's a whole lot more to the story. And 3 years ago, the job of the coalition was much easier. We could show up somewhere, speak to some people, and say, in basically 6 or 7 words, please don't let them condemn our land. And right there you had the guts of the audience with you. More recently, the Army's taken the position that they're not going to condemn, they're going to buy from willing sellers. And politically, that makes our job an uphill battle, because when they tell that to someone, the immediate response is, yeah, that makes sense. And so my job in a couple minutes here is to try to explain the problems with the whole willing seller concept. And the first problem is that eminent domain, to a large extent, has already done its job. The people of southeast Colorado are scared. If you wanted to buy a ranch let's back up. There's only 2 buyers left in the target area, in that 100,000 acres, the people who are on the hot seat right now. Those buyers are the Army and speculators. So there is no land market there. And then if you go to a broader extent of southeast Colorado, it's had a similar effect on the land market. So eminent domain has done its job, now they've taken it off the table. The second point is that they cannot expand and have a military live fire training zone without using condemnation. And here's my point. Let's say they get 100,000 acres purchased. On the deeds on that 100,000 acres, there's going to be county road easements, there's going to be utility easements, there may be conservation easements, and there's probably severed mineral rights scattered all over the country. In order to create a land use change to military training, they're going to have to condemn those easements. Now what happens to the adjacent property owner or the guy who owns property within that 100,000 acres that's serviced by that county road and those utilities? What's his real estate market? Who are his buyers? And what I've just described there, that scenario is inverse condemnation. And it's a confusing concept, but that's what it is. It strips the property rights from adjacent or in-holding landowners and from the county and from the easement holders. On the same subject, most of us, when we run into zoning laws, they're a pain in the butt. They restrict our property rights. But zoning laws also protect our property rights. They give people in the real estate market a stable expectation of land use surrounding any property that they would buy. And the phrase willing sellers and we're not going to condemn, that implies that the federal government would have to play by the same rules that any other land user would. But that implication is false. They don't recognize zoning laws. I don't think military live fire falls under the zoning laws for agricultural use. And maybe the best example of that situation, if the Army were to buy a house in downtown Colorado Springs to train for urban warfare training, do you think that the neighbors next door to that would be screaming about their property rights? And the last point I want to make is I think there's a philosophical problem with the federal government trying to act in a free and competitive market. I think by definition, the federal government cannot participate in a free market. One, I made the point they've already manipulated that market by the threat of condemnation, but I think it goes deeper than that.